You walk into a restaurant, sit down, and open the menu. Every dish looks tempting, every description sounds mouth-watering. But what if I told you that behind those fancy names and glossy menus, there are secrets most chefs don't want you to know? Some dishes are nothing more than recycled leftovers dressed up to look fresh. Others are safe-looking items that might carry hidden health risks. And here's the kicker. Chefs themselves, people who live and breathe food, will never order them when they dine out. Why? Because they know the tricks, they know the shortcuts, and they know exactly where restaurants cut corners. In today's video, we're exposing the 14 dishes chefs avoid at all costs. Some of these will shock you, some will make you laugh, and some might even change the way you look at restaurant menus forever. So stick with me until the very end, because once you know these secrets, you'll never order the same way again. Now, let's kick things off with the first dish, one you've almost certainly had before. It's warm, it's comforting, and it usually comes with a name that sounds kind of fancy. I'm talking about the soup of the day. Sounds innocent, right? A special recipe whipped up just for today. But according to chefs who've spent years behind the line, that soup isn't always the fresh pot of goodness you imagine. In some restaurants, it's exactly where yesterday's unsold roast chicken or half-wilted veggies go to die. One chef I came across joked that soup of the day often translates to soup of the week, and the legendary Gordon Ramsay, yes, the man who can smell a bad dish from a mile away, warns against ordering it unless you ask a very specific question. What was yesterday's soup? If the answer is the same as today's, or if your server stumbles, that's not a great sign. It usually means the kitchen is recycling ingredients, trying to disguise them with broth and seasoning. And while that might sound clever on their end, you're the one paying full price for leftovers. Now, don't get me wrong. There are restaurants where the soup is fresh, made with care, and absolutely worth it. But unless you know and trust the place, it's a gamble. And when you're out for a special meal, gambling on reheated food isn't really the vibe, is it? So here's the first takeaway. If you're craving something warm and hearty, skip the mystery pot on the side burner. Order something you can be confident was prepared with intention, not as a cover-up. After all, when you're spending your hard-earned money, you deserve more than a bowl of "let's clean out the fridge." Next up, we're staying on the theme of healthy-looking, but not always what it seems. This one is on almost every menu, and people order it thinking they're making a safe, smart choice. But in reality, chefs warn it might be one of the worst deals in the house. Let's talk about the humble house salad. House salad. Just saying the name feels healthy, right? It's the dish people order when they want to keep it light, balance out a heavier entree, or simply because it feels like the safe choice on the menu. But here's the thing. Many chefs I've read and spoken about this with practically roll their eyes at the sight of a house salad. Why? Because too often, that bowl of greens is less about freshness and more about convenience. Think about it. In a busy kitchen, every ingredient has a place. The premium cuts of tomato and pepper go to the main entrees. The perfectly crisp lettuce finds its way into sandwiches or special dishes. And what's left behind? The scraps, the ends, the slightly wilted bits. Guess where those wind up? Right, tossed together with a drizzle of dressing and labeled a house salad. It's the kitchen's easiest way to reduce waste while still charging you a premium. And let's talk about that dressing. Ever wonder why house salads are often drowning in it? Because a generous pour of ranch or balsamic vinaigrette can hide a lot of sins. Slightly slimy spinach? Dress it up. Tomatoes that are just past their best? No problem. Toss in some croutons and cheese. You're paying for the illusion of freshness. Beyond quality, there's the simple matter of value. Making a salad at home is one of the easiest and cheapest things you can do. For the cost of one restaurant salad, you could buy an entire week's worth of fresh ingredients and make it exactly how you like it. So why settle for something mediocre and overpriced? Unless a restaurant is known for farm-to-table freshness, the healthy choice on that menu might just be a shortcut. And let's not forget food safety. You've probably seen the news stories about romaine recalls or outbreaks linked to contaminated greens. When restaurants push out massive amounts of pre-cut produce, the risk of mishandling goes up. So when you're rolling the dice on those prepped ahead of time salads, you might be taking a risk without realizing it. So here's the advice. If you want to eat light and healthy, skip the generic house salad. Look instead for seasonal vegetable sides or dishes where produce is cooked and handled with more care. That way, you're not just filling a plate, you're getting real value and flavor. Now, let's pivot. We've covered leftovers hiding in soups and salads made from scraps. But not everything chefs avoid is about food safety or hidden waste. Sometimes it's about pride. Certain foods are so easy to ruin or so personal to the chef's own craft that they'd rather skip them entirely when dining out. Take biscuits, for example. They're one of the most beloved comfort foods in America, but also one of the most divisive in restaurants. I came across a chef from Oakland who calls herself the Queen of Biscuits, and she flat out refuses to order them anywhere else. Why? Because most restaurant biscuits end up dry, crumbly, or worse, like biting into a paper towel. And if you've ever had a bad biscuit, you know exactly what she means. This is where the chef's mindset becomes clear. They don't want to pay for disappointment, and they know when certain dishes are almost guaranteed to miss the mark. And that's the perfect setup for the next big trap: fusion dishes. The ones that look exciting and adventurous on the menu, but often end up being more style than substance. Fusion dishes. On paper, they sound exciting. Two different cuisines smashed together into something new and adventurous. Sushi burrito, ramen burger, spaghetti tacos. You've probably seen at least one of these pop up on a menu or in your social media feed. The idea is bold. Take the best of both worlds and create a dish people can't stop talking about. But here's the truth. Chefs will tell you, most fusion dishes are more about gimmick than greatness. They look good in a press release or on Instagram, but when you taste them, the flavors don't always play well together. Instead of harmony, you get chaos. It's like the kitchen threw a dart at two cookbooks and decided, yep, those go together now. Sure, there are legendary exceptions. The Cronut, for example, a croissant donut hybrid that became a global sensation. But for every cronut, there are dozens of failed mashups that sound innovative but taste like a culinary identity crisis. As one chef put it, I'd rather have one cuisine done well than a confusing mix that tries too hard. That's the danger with fusion. It's not that the concept is bad, it's that it often shifts focus away from mastery. A good chef spends years perfecting one cuisine, understanding its balance, techniques, and history. But when a dish is built just to stand out, not to honor tradition or flavor, you're left with a plate that looks fun but feels empty. So here's my take. If you see a fusion dish on the menu that makes you think, wow, how are they even pulling that off? Odds are they probably aren't. Stick to dishes that highlight the kitchen's strengths instead of gimmicks. Your taste buds will thank you. Now, let's talk about something even more delicate than mixing cuisines: fish. Cooked fish is one of those items that separates a truly skilled chef from a mediocre one. Done right, fishes melt in your mouth, tender, flaky, and flavorful. Done wrong, it's dry, rubbery, and a complete waste of money. And according to the chefs I've read, far too many restaurants serve the second version. One chef described cooking fish as walking a tightrope. The line between perfect and overcooked is razor thin, sometimes a matter of seconds. Unless the restaurant is known specifically for seafood, it's a gamble whether the person cooking has that precision. And here's the kicker. Even the most talented chef can't save a bad piece of fish. That brings us to sourcing. Farm-raised fish, like tilapia, is cheap and widely available, but many chefs avoid it because it lacks the depth of flavor you get from wild-caught, sustainably sourced fish. Some even see farm-raised on a menu as a red flag. If a restaurant isn't transparent about where its fish comes from, it's worth thinking twice. The rule of thumb? Only order fish at restaurants where seafood is the star attraction or where you trust the sourcing completely. Otherwise, save your money and choose something else on the menu. Speaking of delicate dishes with high risk, let's move on to brunch. Everyone loves brunch, right? The mimosas, the atmosphere, the indulgence of it all. But there's one dish in particular that chefs almost unanimously warn against, and it happens to be a fan favorite: Eggs Benedict. Eggs Benedict. Just hearing the name makes you think of brunch with friends, a perfectly poached egg, and that rich, velvety sauce dripping over an English muffin. It's indulgent, it's Instagrammable, and it feels like the definition of weekend luxury. But here's the ugly truth. Chefs almost never order it, and for good reason. The culprit? Hollandaise sauce. It's the heart of the dish and also its biggest danger. Hollandaise is made from butter and raw egg yolks, emulsified together into that smooth golden topping. When it's made fresh and served immediately, it's incredible. But here's the problem. In a busy brunch rush, many restaurants prepare hollandaise in bulk and keep it warm for hours. And when that happens, the sauce becomes a breeding ground for bacteria. The late Anthony Bourdain, never one to sugarcoat, once called hollandaise a hell broth of bacteria if it's not treated with care. His advice? Never order Eggs Benedict unless you're absolutely sure the kitchen is making the sauce to order. Otherwise, you're risking more than just a broken sauce, you're risking food poisoning. And beyond safety, there's the flavor factor. Hollandaise is temperamental. If it sits too long, it loses its silky texture, turning grainy or overly heavy. So even if it doesn't make you sick, it might just end up disappointing. My advice? If you want brunch eggs, go for something less risky. Omelets, scrambles, or even a simple poached egg with toast. You'll enjoy the meal without worrying about what's been sitting in a lukewarm pot in the back kitchen. Now, while we're on the topic of Instagram-worthy food, let's talk about another category that chefs say is more hype than substance: trending foods. You've seen them. Towering burgers stacked so high they collapse before you can take a bite. Milkshakes covered in cookies, candy, and sprinkles, so overloaded they look like a dessert explosion. Or the infamous everything served on a board trend. Pasta on a board, nachos on a board, even breakfast on a board. These dishes are designed to get likes on social media, not to deliver a satisfying meal. Chefs call this style over substance. The focus is on shock value, not taste. Sure, it's fun to snap a picture, but when you're paying restaurant prices, do you really want to eat something built for an algorithm instead of your appetite? A dish should impress your tongue, not just your timeline. So here's a quick tip I've picked up. When you see something on the menu that looks like it was engineered for Instagram, ask yourself, would I still want this if I couldn't take a picture of it? If the answer is no, skip it. Chances are you'll find a dish that actually tastes better, even if it doesn't rack up likes on your feed. From the ultra-modern food gimmicks, let's pivot to something much older and far more serious: sushi. It's elegant, it's celebrated worldwide, and when it's prepared correctly, it can feel like one of the purest expressions of food artistry. But ask professional chefs if they order sushi casually, and most of them will say absolutely not, unless they know the chef personally or trust the restaurant's reputation without question. Why so much caution? Because sushi isn't just about raw fish on rice. It's about precision in every single step. The fish has to be stored, handled, and aged properly to bring out its natural flavors. The rice must be cooked just right, seasoned with a balance of vinegar and sugar, and held at a specific temperature. Even the way the sushi is assembled, the angle of the cut, the pressure of the chef's hands, can change the experience completely. If any part of that process is rushed or ignored, the whole dish falls apart. One sushi master described it this way: a great sushi restaurant should smell faintly like cucumber or fresh melon, never like fish. That fishy smell? It's a red flag that the seafood isn't fresh. Another telltale sign is the rice. Good sushi rice should be slightly warm, tender, and each grain should stand on its own. If it's cold, dry, or clumpy, you're not eating something prepared with care. And here's the kicker: bad sushi isn't just disappointing, it can be dangerous. Mishandled raw fish can lead to serious foodborne illnesses. That's why many chefs save sushi for restaurants they know specialize in it, where they trust the skill, the sourcing, and the traditions being respected. So the next time you're craving sushi, don't roll the dice on a random spot. Choose carefully, because this is one dish where quality control matters more than anything else. Now, let's switch gears to something that seems much more straightforward: steak. For many of us, steak is the ultimate splurge meal. A perfectly cooked ribeye or filet mignon feels like the definition of celebration: birthdays, anniversaries, promotions. But here's the surprise: many chefs say they almost never order steak in restaurants. The reasoning is simple. A well-trained chef knows how to cook steak at home, and often they can do it just as well, if not better, than what they'd get for triple the price at a restaurant. Why spend $60 on something you can nail in your own kitchen for a fraction of the cost? Now, there is one big exception: Japanese A5 Wagyu. That's not just steak, it's an experience. The marbling, the richness, the way it melts on your tongue. You can't replicate that at home unless you're importing it yourself. But outside of something rare and special like Wagyu, most chefs skip steak when they're dining out. They'd rather use the opportunity to try a dish that showcases the restaurant's creativity, something they couldn't easily whip up in their own kitchen. And that logic brings us to the most commonly ordered protein in America: chicken. It's everywhere, from fast food menus to fine dining. But according to chefs, it's also one of the biggest letdowns you can order when you're trying to enjoy a memorable meal. Chicken. It's the go-to protein for millions of diners, and I get it. It feels safe. It's lean, it's familiar, and it's on every menu from the corner diner to the white tablecloth steakhouse. But here's the chef's perspective. Chicken, especially chicken breast, is one of the most boring things you can order when you're out. Why? Because it's the easiest to ruin. Overcooked chicken breast becomes dry, stringy, and about as enjoyable as chewing on cardboard. And let's be honest, how many times have you cut into a restaurant chicken dish only to find it bland and uninspired? Too often, chefs say. One chef put it bluntly: "If I feel like I could have made the same thing at home, why am I paying restaurant prices for it?" And that's the crux of it. When chefs dine out, they want to experience something bold, creative, maybe even a little risky. A plain grilled chicken breast doesn't deliver that. Now, if you're really craving chicken, there is a workaround. Many chefs suggest ordering thighs instead. Chicken thighs stay juicy, they're packed with flavor, and they allow chefs to show off a little more technique. A well-prepared braised thigh or roasted leg can be a revelation compared to the predictable, overcooked breast. From chicken, let's move to pasta. Specifically, one of the most popular Italian-American comfort foods, Alfredo. Thick, creamy, rich. It's the pasta dish that almost everyone has tried at some point. But here's the problem: most chefs see Alfredo as a wasted opportunity. In America, Alfredo sauce is usually a heavy mix of butter, cream, and Parmesan. It coats the noodles, fills you up fast, and doesn't leave much room for nuance. But authentic Alfredo, the kind first created in Rome over a century ago, has zero cream in it. That's right, none. Instead, it's made from just butter, Parmesan, and starchy pasta water, emulsified into a silky sauce that clings delicately to the noodles. It's elegant, balanced, and born out of love. Compare that to the version you usually find in restaurants here: a one-note cream bomb that feels heavy after 3 bites. For chefs, it's uninspiring. They know pasta can be a canvas for so much creativity: seasonal vegetables, seafood, handmade noodles. So why settle for something that tastes like a shortcut? Unless the restaurant is truly elevating the dish, Alfredo is often a miss. Now let's talk about a dish that's even murkier: beef tips. Sounds good on the menu, doesn't it? Savory little bites of beef in a rich sauce. But here's the catch: beef tips isn't a defined cut of meat. It can mean anything. Sometimes you get tender morsels from the end of a fillet. Other times you get scraps, trimmings, or whatever odds and ends the kitchen has on hand. One chef compared ordering beef tips to buying a mystery box. You might get lucky, but more often than not, you're paying restaurant prices for what's essentially leftovers. And unlike dishes that are built with intention, beef tips can feel like an afterthought. If you wouldn't order a plate of scraps at home, why pay for them out at a restaurant? And that takes us to a bigger picture lesson. Sometimes it's not just about one dish, but about timing and ingredients. Because even the best recipe will fall flat if it's made with produce that's past its prime. That's where our next category comes in: out-of-season dishes. This one isn't about a single item on the menu, but rather a pattern that chefs immediately notice when they're dining out. The principle is simple: the best food is made with ingredients that are in season. Fresh strawberries in the middle of summer? Perfect. A juicy peach in July? Unbeatable. But try ordering those same items in the dead of winter and you're asking for disappointment. Chefs know this better than anyone. They can tell when asparagus was flown halfway around the world, picked too early, and stored for weeks before hitting your plate. Sure, it still looks like asparagus, but the flavor is muted, the texture is off, and it's a far cry from the vibrant, tender spears you'd get in spring. One chef summed it up perfectly: If I'm going out to eat, I want to enjoy what's best right now, not what's been sitting in cold storage. The message here is clear. Seasonal cooking isn't just about freshness, it's about respect for the ingredient and the craft of cooking itself. When a restaurant leans into local, seasonal produce, it tells you they care about flavor and quality. When they ignore it, you can almost guarantee the dish won't be worth the price. So next time you're scanning a menu, look for seasonal specials or notes about local sourcing. That's usually where the real gems are hiding. Now, let's wrap things up with the final category, one that cuts across everything we've talked about: processed or unhealthy foods. Here's the deal. Chefs spend their lives learning to transform raw ingredients into something special. So when they go out to eat, the last thing they want is to pay for something that came out of a jar, a freezer, or a bag. Think about it. Pre-made sauces, frozen desserts, or soups reheated from a bag aren't just shortcuts. They're shortcuts you could have taken at home for a fraction of the price. One chef said it best: "I want food that nourishes me, not something that weighs me down." When a dish screams convenience instead of craftsmanship, it's a red flag. And the truth is, diners can often spot it too. Ever had a dessert that tasted like it came straight from the freezer aisle? Or a sauce that felt more like paste than something freshly made? That's the kind of corner-cutting professionals avoid at all costs. And this leads us to the big takeaway. Dining out should be special. It's not just about filling your stomach, it's about the experience, the creativity, and the chance to enjoy something you couldn't easily make at home. The chefs who shared their insights weren't trying to scare anyone away from restaurants. They were trying to help you spot the difference between a plate that's thrown together and a plate that's crafted with care. So the next time you open a menu, remember what we've covered. Be cautious with the soup of the day. Think twice about that house salad, skip the gimmicky trends, and choose dishes that celebrate freshness, skill, and intention. Your money and your taste buds deserve that. Now, I want to hear from you. Which of these dishes surprised you the most? Have you ever had a bad experience with one of them? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I love reading your stories. And if you found this helpful, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss future videos. We've got plenty more behind-the-scenes food insights coming your way. Until next time, eat smart, eat well, and enjoy every bite.